The PlayStation 5 didn't launch into a normal world, it launched into chaos. Stores were empty, people refreshed websites for hours, scalpers were everywhere, and somehow, a gaming console became one of the hardest pieces of technology to buy on Earth. But the real story of the PS5 isn't just about shortages, it's about expectations. Because by 2020, Sony had already rebuilt its reputation. The PlayStation 4 was a massive success. Players trusted PlayStation again. And the entire gaming industry was changing faster than ever before. Graphics looked almost cinematic. Games were becoming larger. Load times were becoming unbearable. And players wanted something that finally felt truly next generation. Sony knew the PS5 couldn't just be another upgrade. It had to feel like the future. And for the first time in years, that future actually felt visible. When Sony revealed the PlayStation 5, people were divided instantly. Some loved the futuristic design, others thought it looked too large, too strange, too different. But regardless of opinion, everyone noticed it. And that was intentional. Sony didn't want the PS5 to disappear into the background. They wanted it to feel like a leap into a new era. And honestly, the moment players turned it on for the first time, it kind of did. Because the PS5 wasn't just about graphics. Its biggest improvement was something players had been waiting for quietly for years: speed. Now pause here for a second, because if you grew up during the PS1, PS2, PS3, or even PS4 era, you probably remember loading screens. Long ones, staring at logos, waiting minutes for games to start, sometimes dying in a game, only to wait all over again. The PS5 changed that experience almost overnight. Its ultra-fast SSD made games load in seconds, not minutes, and suddenly, gaming felt smoother, cleaner, more immersive. Players spent less time waiting and more time playing. It sounds simple today, but back then it felt magical. And then there was the controller, the DualSense. This became one of the PS5's biggest surprises, because for years, controllers barely changed, better vibration, slightly different shapes. That was about it. But the DualSense felt different immediately. Adaptive triggers, haptic feedback, tiny physical sensations reacting to gameplay. Players could feel rain, resistance, footsteps, tension. It made games feel more alive. And for many players, this was the first time a controller genuinely felt next-gen. But despite all the excitement, the PS5 had a difficult beginning because hardly anyone could buy one. The pandemic disrupted manufacturing worldwide. Chip shortages slowed production, demand exploded, and scalpers used bots to buy consoles instantly. For months, sometimes years, getting a PS5 felt impossible. And strangely, that made the console feel even more legendary. People wanted it more because they couldn't get it. But eventually, the PS5 found its footing. And like every successful PlayStation, its identity came from the games. Let's talk about 3 of the most played and defining PlayStation 5 games, and why players became obsessed with them. First, Spider-Man 2. This game perfectly showed what the PS5 could do. Fast movement, instant loading, massive city detail. Players loved the feeling of freedom. Swinging through New York at incredible speed without interruptions felt almost unreal. But what truly connected with players was the emotion, the relationships, the cinematic storytelling. It felt like playing inside a blockbuster movie. Second, Call of Duty Warzone. Even though Warzone existed before the PS5, the new hardware transformed the experience. Higher frame rates, faster loading, smoother gameplay. Players loved the intensity, the competitiveness, the constant adrenaline. Every match felt unpredictable, and because gaming had become more social than ever, Warzone became a place where friends spent countless nights together. Third, God of War Ragnarok. This game represented something PlayStation had mastered over the years: storytelling. Players loved the emotional weight of Kratos and Atreus. The visuals were stunning, the world felt alive, and the combat carried incredible impact thanks to the DualSense controller. But most importantly, players felt emotionally connected to the journey, and that's something PlayStation exclusives became famous for. And this became Sony's greatest strength once again: immersion. Not just graphics, not just power, but experiences that felt meaningful. But despite all the hype and success, the PlayStation 5 still had flaws, and some of them frustrated players immediately. First, the PS5 was massive. For many players, it barely fit inside entertainment setups. Some people even had to rearrange furniture just to place it properly. Compared to older PlayStations, it looked enormous. Second, limited storage space. Even with the fast SSD, modern games became huge. 100 gigabytes, 150 gigabytes, sometimes more. Players constantly found themselves deleting games to free up space. And because PS5 storage expansion wasn't cheap, this became a common frustration. Third, the lack of true next-gen exclusives early on. At launch, many games were still available on PS4, which made some players question whether upgrading was necessary immediately. The PS5 felt powerful, but it took time before its library truly felt exclusive. And yet, none of these flaws stopped its momentum. Because Sony understood something important by this generation. Gaming had become emotional, social. The PS5 wasn't just competing with other consoles anymore, it was competing for people's time, attention, memories, and over time, the PlayStation 5 became more than hardware. Streaming exploded further, digital gaming became dominant, physical discs slowly became less important, and gaming itself became one of the world's largest entertainment industries. The PS5 arrived at the center of that transformation. And today, looking back at its launch era already feels strangely nostalgic. The online countdowns, the shortages, the excitement of finally finding one in stock, the first time hearing the startup sound, the first moment feeling the DualSense triggers respond in your hands. Because every PlayStation generation creates memories. But the PS5 generation, it arrived during one of the strangest periods in modern history, and maybe that's part of why players remember it so strongly. The PlayStation 5 didn't reinvent gaming the way the PS1 did, or dominate entertainment the way the PS2 did, or fight through adversity like the PS3, or perfect modern gaming like the PS4 instead. The PS5 refined everything PlayStation had learned over decades: speed, immersion, storytelling, community, and in many ways, it represents the final evolution of everything Sony started back in the 1990s. A company once rejected by Nintendo eventually built one of the most powerful gaming brands in history, and the PS5 is proof of just how far that journey came.